My fiancé ghosted me a week before the wedding. No calls, no text, no explanation. So I sold the $13,000 ring, canceled the venue, and locked down my bank accounts. When she finally showed up at my workplace 3 weeks later, crying and demanding I fix it, I handed her an itemized spreadsheet of the financial ruin she caused. Her reaction? Pure entitlement. Before we get into the fallout of this disaster, please don't forget to like and subscribe to Story Sparks. It helps the channel grow and lets us bring you more stories about resilience, boundaries, and the reality of dealing with toxic people. I'm Matthew. I am 32 years old and I work as a project manager for a commercial construction company. Or, I should say, I was 32 and about to be a husband. Now I'm just 32 with a stack of cancellation receipts and a very expensive lesson in human psychology. It started exactly 8 days before the wedding. My fiancée, Lisa, who is 29, was supposed to meet me at our reception venue. We had a final walkthrough scheduled for the next morning, last-minute stuff. Table placements, finalizing meal counts, confirming where the DJ was setting up. She never showed up to my apartment that night. At 7 p.m. I texted her. No reply. At 8 p.m. I called. It went straight to voicemail. That was odd. Lisa's phone was usually surgically attached to her hand. She lived on Instagram and group chats. By 9 p.m. that cold, heavy knot started forming in my gut. I called again. Voicemail. I called her sister, Ashley. Ashley hadn't heard from her either. I called her parents. Same panic. By midnight, I was frantic. I called her bridesmaids. I drove past her apartment complex. Her car was gone. The windows were dark. This wasn't Lisa. She was a planner. She was an overcommunicator. For her to just vanish a week before the biggest day of her life was unthinkable. The next 24 hours were a blur of adrenaline and terror. I called local hospitals. I filed a missing persons report. It felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life play out on a true crime documentary. Her family was a complete wreck. I was torn between absolute terror that something awful had happened to her and a creeping, sickening dread of a more personal betrayal. Day 3, the police called. They found her. She was safe. She was staying with an old college friend, Sandra, 3 hours away. Relief hit me like a physical wave. My knees actually buckled. And then immediately after the relief came a cold, sharp feeling of what on earth. She was fine. And she told no one, not her parents, not her sister, not me. The police officer on the phone sounded uncomfortable. He said she wouldn't speak to me. She gave no reason for her departure, just stated that she was safe and needed space. Needed space. A week before our wedding, my brain just froze. The fear and the grief morphed instantly into something icy and mechanical. No note, no text, no email, after 5 years together, after planning a life. After picking out those incredibly expensive floral centerpieces, silence. So I stopped panicking and I started making calls. I called the venue. I lost the $5,000 deposit. I called the caterer. Another $3,500 gone. The photographer was sympathetic, but business is business. Bye-bye $2,000. The florist kept my initial deposit. The DJ, the cake, the honeymoon flights, the non-refundable resort in the Maldives. Each call was a hammer tap, chipping away at the future I thought I had, and draining my bank account in the process. The financial hit from these deposits, things I had personally paid for or was immediately liable for, was catastrophic. I was out around $15,000 in a matter of hours. Her parents had paid for her custom dress separately, and they were supposed to cover the bulk of the flower costs directly with the florist the week of the wedding. But the initial booking deposit for the flowers had come out of my account. The hardest calls weren't to the vendors, they were to family and friends. The wedding is off. The shock, the unanswerable questions, the pure humiliation of having to explain that my bride simply ran away. My mom cried. My dad just kept asking, "Son, what on earth happened? I wish I knew." Then I looked at the ring. It was a 1.5 carat cushion cut, vintage-inspired setting. Her absolute dream ring. It cost me over $13,000. I took it to a reputable jeweler downtown. I didn't care about sentimentality anymore. I cared about survival. I got $7,800 for it. Less than I hoped, but more than I feared. That money went straight into my checking account as a partial offset against the $15,000 in direct losses I'd already incurred. It barely scratched the surface of the total financial damage, but it was something. It kept me above water. I went back to my apartment and packed every single thing of hers. Photos, clothes, the silly carnival teddy bear I won for her on our second date. Everything was boxed, labeled, and stacked by the door, ready for her eventual reappearance. 5 days passed since I found out she was safe. Still no word. She ghosted her own wedding and she ghosted me. The anger was a cold lump in my chest, but mostly I felt clear. How do you come back from this? You don't. I was just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Because people who do things like this don't just disappear forever. They always have a follow-up act. Well, the other shoe didn't just drop. It practically kicked the door down. Last Tuesday, I was at work. I am a project manager, so my days are busy. I was mid-meeting with a major client when my colleague, Nancy, poked her head into the conference room. "Matthew, I'm so sorry to interrupt," she said, looking stressed. "You have a visitor at reception. She says it's urgent." I excused myself, annoyed at the interruption. I walked to the reception area, and there she was, Lisa. She looked like she had been crying for a week straight. Puffy eyes, messy hair, wearing sweatpants. A world away from the polished, image-obsessed woman I was supposed to marry. My first thought was, seriously, here, at my workplace. "Matthew," she said, her voice thick and wet. She tried to step forward to hug me. I took a hard step back, keeping my hands at my sides. "Lisa, what are you doing here?" I kept my voice low. Nancy, at the front desk, was suddenly very busy looking at her computer screen, clearly trying not to eavesdrop. "We need to talk," Lisa whispered, tears welling up. "Please, it's all been a horrible mistake." "A mistake," I said flatly. "Ghosting me and your family a week before our wedding, refusing contact, triggering a police search. That's a mistake." I know," she sobbed. "I freaked out. I got scared. Sandra said some things. I just panicked." Sandra, her free-spirit friend who always thought Lisa was too good to settle down in the suburbs with a construction manager. "So you ran off," I said, my voice devoid of any warmth. "No word for 3 weeks, and you come here." "I didn't know how to face you. I was ashamed, Matthew. I still love you. I want to fix this." She reached out for my hand again. I pulled it away. "Fix this?" I stared at her in absolute disbelief. "Lisa, there is nothing to fix. It's done. I canceled everything. The wedding is off permanently." Her face crumpled in horror. "No, you can't mean that. We can rebook. We can tell everyone I had a family emergency, a health scare. We can smooth it over." The sheer entitlement was stunning. Smooth it over. Like spilling a drink on a rug, not detonating 2 families and thousands of dollars. "Lisa," I said slowly, making sure every word landed, "I sold the ring." That stopped her. Her jaw literally dropped open. "You? What?" "I sold it. As I said, I lost over $15,000 in non-refundable deposits because you vanished. The $7,800 I got for the ring barely made a dent, but it was necessary to keep me out of debt." "You sold my ring." Her voice started rising, echoing in the lobby. "That was my ring. The setting was inspired by my grandmother. How could you?" Okay, now the anger hit me. "Your ring," I said, stepping closer, keeping my voice dangerously quiet. "I bought it for a wedding you abandoned. It was a symbol of a commitment you spat on. Inspiration doesn't make it a family heirloom when I paid for the diamonds and the gold." "But the money," she sputtered, her face turning red. "What about it?" I asked calmly. "You have to give it to me. That money is partly mine. We were getting married." "We were getting married." Past tense. "No, I don't have to do anything except protect myself from the financial damage you caused." Right at that moment, my boss, Mr. Donaldson, walked out of his office. He's a stern, old-school guy, but fair. He was drawn by her rising voice. He glanced at Lisa, then at me, one eyebrow raised. "Everything all right out here, Matthew?" he asked. "Personal matter, Mr. Donaldson." "Being resolved right now," I said, giving Lisa a hard get-out look. But Lisa, lacking any sense of boundaries, appealed directly to him. "He sold my engagement ring. He canceled our wedding without talking to me," she wailed, pointing at me like I was a criminal. Mr. Donaldson looked incredibly uncomfortable. "Ma'am, this is a place of business." I cut in immediately. "Lisa, this is wildly inappropriate. You need to leave, now." "But Matthew, our families, the deposits my parents paid." "Your parents paid for your custom dress, which I assume you still have hanging in a closet somewhere. They were also supposed to pay the florist the remaining balance directly, but they hadn't yet." I took a breath and delivered the final blow. When I canceled the florist contract, I got stuck with their $1,400 cancellation fee because I made the initial booking under my name. That fee added to my already huge losses. Losses the ring money only fractionally covered. I have receipts for everything. You can discuss those charges with your parents." She looked like she had been physically slapped. She was ugly, crying now, mascara running down her face. "You're so cruel," she choked out. "You're so cold. I made a mistake. Don't I deserve compassion?" Compassion. The word tasted like ash. "I used up all my compassion wondering if you were dead in a ditch for 3 days," I said, ice in my voice. "You want compassion? Start with an actual apology, an explanation that isn't blaming your friend Sandra. And don't ambush me at my job demanding money from a ring you forfeited when you fled, especially when I am still paying off bills your parents should have covered." "I hate you," she screamed. Colleagues were staring from their cubicles. My cheeks burned with embarrassment, but my resolve only hardened. The feeling was rapidly becoming mutual. "Nancy," I said calmly, "can you call security to show this woman out?" Lisa glared at me venomously, spun on her heel and stormed out, nearly tripping over a potted fern by the glass doors. Mr. Donaldson walked over to me. "Well, that was a lot. You okay, son?" "Peachy," I muttered, but I was shaking, not from fear or even sadness. From the sheer audacity. She didn't just want forgiveness. She wanted an eraser. She expected me to swallow the betrayal, foot the bill, and pretend it never happened. The family fallout. Later that evening, her mother, Margaret, called me. Oh joy, I thought, answering the phone. Margaret is deeply concerned with appearances. She is polite but entirely judgmental. She called a few hours after Lisa's office flameout. "Matthew, dear," she began, false sweetness dripping from every syllable. "Lisa is beside herself, distraught." "I can imagine," I said dryly. "Screaming in someone's workplace is tiring." A sharp intake of breath on the other end. "There is no need for sarcasm, Matthew. The poor girl made a mistake. A big one, yes. Her father and I are deeply disappointed. But she has realized her error and wants to make amends." Her idea of amends involved demanding I reinstate a canceled wedding and hand over cash from a sold ring. "That's delusion, Margaret," I said. "She was upset about the ring, naturally," Margaret said, glossing over my comment. "The sentimental value, the design." "The design she picked from a catalog," I corrected. "The sentiment was in the commitment, which she abandoned." Margaret's voice firmed up. The sweetness vanished. "This isn't just about feelings, Matthew. There are considerable costs involved here. We paid for her expensive dress. And we had given you too a substantial monetary gift for your honeymoon, $5,000. Given the wedding is off by your hand with the cancellations." I almost laughed out loud. The mental gymnastics were Olympic level. "Hold on, Margaret," I interrupted. "The wedding is off because Lisa vanished, causing a police search, emotional distress, and massive financial loss. I canceled the vendors because the bride was missing in action. Your $5,000 gift went into our joint wedding fund spreadsheet. It clearly shows that money was allocated to the non-refundable Maldives resort that Lisa insisted on booking. I have the bank statements and the payment confirmations. Want them?" Silence on the line. "Then, it is improper for you to have kept that money." Improper. Now I was annoyed. What's improper is your daughter vanishing and leaving me with the pieces and the bills. That $5,000 covered two-thirds of the lost honeymoon flights and resort. I absorbed the rest of that cost, plus all the other deposits I had made for the venue, the caterer, the DJ. The ring money only partly offset my initial losses. It didn't make me whole. I took a breath. And while we are itemizing things, Margaret. Itemizing what? She asked nervously. You and Christopher were contracted to pay the florist the outstanding balance of $2,800 directly the week of the wedding. Remember, you hadn't done it yet. When I had to cancel the entire contract because the wedding was off, the florist charged a 50% cancellation fee on that total, which amounted to $1,400. Since I made the initial booking and paid the small holding deposit, I was legally on the hook for that fee. When you didn't pay your share, I had to cover it, adding further to my significant personal losses. Outrageous, she sputtered. You're trying to extort us. No, Margaret, I said, my voice dangerously calm. I am stating facts. Lisa's actions led to these costs. The ring money only softened the blow of my own direct losses. Your $5,000 gift went to the honeymoon we never took. Now, on top of all that, I had to cover the $1,400 florist cancellation fee that arose entirely because you and Christopher didn't fulfill your commitment before Lisa disappeared. There is no profit for me here, only a massive headache and a broken engagement. Lisa said you were cold, Margaret hissed. She was right, after all she's been through, all she's been through. Margaret, what about me, our families, our friends, the worry, the canceled plans, the sheer embarrassment? She didn't go through a tragedy, she created one. Decent people communicate. They take responsibility. She actually suggested I apologize to Lisa for selling her ring and for not being understanding at my job. Enough, I said firmly. Margaret, listen to me. I'm done. I am sending you, Christopher and Lisa, a fully itemized spreadsheet via registered mail. It will list all wedding-related expenses that I managed or was left financially responsible for. It will include payments I made, deposits I lost, and liabilities I had to cover when others defaulted, like your florist bill. It will clearly demonstrate that no one is profiting, least of all me. It will also clearly state the $1,400 florist bill I covered on your behalf. You wouldn't dare, she clipped. Reimburse me for the $1,400 or don't, your choice. But any further demands for money or harassment at my workplace will be met with a cease and desist letter from an attorney. Are we clear? Dead quiet. Try me, I said and hung up. My hands were shaking, but the rage was a clean, purifying fire. They honestly thought they could bully me into paying for Lisa's enormous, selfish mistake. The spreadsheet of truth. The next day, I did exactly what I promised. I created a meticulous spreadsheet. Every vendor for shared items, every deposit I paid, dates, scanned receipts, and highlighted lines showing the cancellation fees I was forced to cover. I attached proof of the ring sale and a calculation showing how that $7,800 only partially offset my own initial list of losses. I printed 3 copies, sent them via registered mail, return receipt requested, one for Lisa, one for Margaret and Christopher. Then the fun began. Lisa wasn't just staying with Sandra anymore. After Lisa's office stunt, I heard via the grapevine that Sandra apparently told Lisa to own her stuff or leave. So, Lisa was back living with her parents. My spreadsheet landed right in the middle of their tense reunion. I got a text from Ashley, Lisa's sister, a few days later. Ashley, Matthew, Mom and Dad got your documents, and Lisa did too. It is World War III over here. Just wanted to say I'm sorry. You didn't deserve any of this. I replied, thanks, Ashley. I appreciate that. Sending that spreadsheet wasn't vindictive. It was about clarity and consequences. They wanted to muddy the waters. They wanted to make me the cold, calculating bad guy who stole their honeymoon money and sold a family heirloom. The spreadsheet was my factual weapon. It removed emotion and left only math. I heard that Lisa tried spinning a story to mutual friends about me getting cold feet, being controlling, and how she had to escape. But between her public meltdown at my office and my calm, documented explanation to anyone who asked, her narrative contrasted sharply with reality. People talked and they were not kind about her. Her victim narrative completely backfired, especially when her financial demands leaked to our friend group, likely via Margaret complaining to the wrong person. The fallout was simple. Her actions, her consequences. No dramatic screaming matches from me, just paperwork and truth. I still haven't received reimbursement for the $1,400 florist fee. I don't expect it, but they know. And they know their demands for the ring money are entirely baseless because my documentation clearly shows I was left holding the bag for their portion, too. It's been a while now. Life, annoyingly, just keeps going. After I sent that registered mail of financial truth, the initial explosion settled into silence. Blessed, golden silence. No more calls from Margaret. No tearful, manipulative ambushes from Lisa. No angry emails from Christopher, who, I always figured, was quietly baffled by the behavior of the women in his family. What I did get was an absolute gem of an update from Ashley about a month ago. We kept sporadic, cautious contact. Ashley, you are not going to believe this. Or maybe you will. Lisa tried to get mom and dad to pay for a healing retreat in Sedona for her trauma from the wedding cancellation. It cost $3,000, I replied. And did they? Ashley, Dad actually said no. Flat out. He told her that her healing could start with getting a job and paying them back for the deposits they lost on her dress alterations and the other bits they prepaid for directly. Things that weren't even on your list. Mom gave Dad the silent treatment. Lisa threw a hysterical circus. That right there was better than any $1,400 reimbursement. Entitlement hitting a family brick wall. Christopher finally finding his voice. Good on him. And Ashley's clarification confirmed that my spreadsheet correctly focused only on my direct and consequential losses, leaving them to deal with their own internal mess. Lisa, from what Ashley and others say, isn't thriving. Her victim plan crumbled. The workplace stunt made her look unhinged. Her bad-mouthing of me was clumsy and easily refuted by facts. Many former mutual friends saw her behavior for what it was. Some offered me support. Others just faded away to avoid the drama. That's understandable. Friendship culls happen after an explosion like this. She's apparently still living with her parents. Her job hunt isn't going well, mostly because anything she's qualified for is beneath her after her trauma. The world simply isn't bending to her narrative anymore. The artifact of this mess for me is that spreadsheet. I saved it on my desktop. Not for the money, but as a reminder that strategy, not just emotion, works. Drawing a hard line in the sand, armed with facts, is the best defense against manipulation. As for me, the first month was rough. Not just anger, but sheer, exhausting bafflement. The why is something I will probably never get a satisfying answer to. People who do things like this rarely make sense to anyone but themselves. But the clarity I felt after that first confrontation at my office stuck with me. It was like a dirty filter had been removed from my life. I see people more clearly now. I sold the couch we picked out together and bought a new one just for me. I reclaimed my space. I hit the gym more regularly. It's great stress relief. I reconnected with neglected friends. Work is going great. Mr. Donaldson actually gave me a nod of respect a few weeks after the incident, telling me I handled the situation like a professional. Small things matter. Am I dating? Definitely not. Not yet. Trust feels daunting right now, but I'm trying not to be bitter about it. I'm focusing on myself, my career, my friendships, and my healing. I guess I'm doing it my way. No $3,000 Sedona retreat needed. Sometimes late at night I feel a flicker of the old hurt, the betrayal, the loss of the imagined future, but it passes quicker now, replaced by a quiet satisfaction. Not a loud victory, but calm assurance. I handled an impossible, humiliating situation with dignity and strength. I didn't let her destroy me, my finances, or my reputation. She faced consequences, natural ones. There was no over-the-top revenge plot, just the steady fallout from a terrible choice. That feels more real and more satisfying than any drama could. She made her bed. Now she's lying in it with her parents, complaining about the sheets. I'm sleeping just fine. If this story gave you some perspective on handling toxic situations, hit the like button. It helps the channel, and it helps this message reach people who might be dealing with their own version of Lisa. Drop a comment below. How would you have handled the ring? Would you have sold it or given her a cut? Subscribe to Story Sparks for more real stories about surviving the madness. Until next time, protect your peace and always keep your receipts.